Hello, everyone. Certainly, you're aware probably now that this is what in the Catholic tradition and other Christian traditions called Holy Week, that last week of Jesus' life before he handed over his life totally out of love for us. And there's so many traditions that are part of this week to make us more mindful, more conscious, more prayerful about what God through Jesus Christ has done for us and continues to still do for us. I'm going to speak briefly about the seven last words of Jesus. That's been a tradition for many centuries. It's the seven basic sentences that he said on the cross. And we reflect on those as, again, another source of meditation, going deeper. And I hope you'll consider doing that, or at least listening to this, because I know we're getting to a point where probably for many of us older that we know that time between 12 and 3 was meant to be a prayerful time. A lot of times businesses were closed, churches were open, and many people spent that whole period of time in quiet, in prayer, just recognizing and appreciating and what Jesus Christ has done. In some sense, feeling his pain, what he has done for us, out of his great love. And this particular phrase, I was going to say the Stations of the Cross, that's another beautiful way to celebrate, to remember Jesus, and you can go to online to get those. But I'm going to briefly reflect on these seven, and they're a source of God's great love in Jesus and ultimate triumph. So here we go for a fairly brief but important meditation. The first one: Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. This is in Luke's Gospel. Wow. Think about that. Jesus was being put to death by these people. They had rejected him. They had plotted against him. They had finally found a way to have him put to death. And then you even have the disciples who should have known better, and all of them except John abandoned him. So, horrible reality of selfishness, of pride, of just meanness. And we see Jesus understandably could have said, Father, may they pay the penalty for what they're doing to me. But no, the radical nature that inspires us, because it calls us to, can we be more forgiving of a lot less that happens in our life? So again, Father, forgive them. Notice that they know not what they do. Jesus is saying they don't fully get it. They don't understand what they're doing. And I want them to be forgiven. Then the second one in Luke's Gospel, he says to the good thief, truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise. The reminder that that's the ultimate journey. Jesus is on the cross. The good thief speaks up for Jesus against the other thief and says, hey, Jesus didn't do anything wrong. He doesn't deserve this. And Jesus then responded to that thief, who ultimately was good. And even the fact that we name him, he might have messed up his life, his entire life, but in that last moment, he was able to acknowledge Jesus and acknowledge his own wrongdoing. And of course, then Jesus responds, today I will be with you in paradise. That's a beautiful phrase, even to when we lose a loved one at the time they die, and maybe in hospice or in any circumstance that we can truly say, today, this loved one of mine will be in paradise, because paradise is the ultimate journey, to remember that, to find hope in that. Then the third one of these is from John's Gospel. Woman, behold your son. Behold, son, behold your mother. And so this is where he's speaking to John, the only disciple who was there, and to his mother Mary, to say, even at the end, to have someone there with you. And as he was saying, he knew he was leaving. He could have been preoccupied with himself what I'm going through. But seeing John and Mary there, no, he was conscious of them. He knew he would no longer be with them in the same way. He had some trust in the resurrection, but still seeing the two of them and saying, be there with and for each other. I want you to hold each other up, to be there to comfort each other. That was his consciousness even while he was going through such great pain. Then, Matthew's gospel and Mark, my God, why have you forsaken me? Sometimes we say, whoa, Jesus was God, didn't he know? But Jesus stripped himself of everything but sin. Jesus had to trust his Heavenly Father. He didn't know. He wasn't a stoic, just going through the motions. He was experiencing real pain, and reminds us that even sometimes in our moments, we may say, God, I don't see you in my life. God, I'm fearful you're not around. We know that Jesus understands that. He knows our struggle. He went through it too. My God, why have you forsaken me? At the same time, those weren't the last words he said. And that's our hope too, as we look one day to our ultimate journey through death to new life. He then said, and this is in John's gospel, I thirst. And obviously as a human being, because he was fully human, and he experienced that bodily pain and being thirsty, again, being dehydrated on the cross, and yet making that focused that, as he says, hey, I'm human like you, I thirst. And to believe that his thirst would be met, not by the soldiers there. They just put hyssop or wine on him, and that didn't do anything. But he knew his Heavenly Father would respond to his deepest thirst for a love that was everlasting. Then, in John's Gospel, one of the final things he says is, it is finished. Wow. It reminds us that Jesus had a purpose in his life, to give his life totally, to show the Father's love, to go forward even if it was rejected, abandoned, put down, to go forward and do what he was meant to do. And what he was meant to do was give that ultimate love. And so he does that on the cross. As he's just close to that dying moment, he says, it is finished. All of us need to look that we go through life, that we finish our life in a good way, that whatever we do, we know the Lord had us here for a reason and wants us to make a difference in people's lives, and at the end be able to say, it is finished. I've done the purpose you gave me in this life for. Then finally, that ultimate trust of Jesus, a reminder to us, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. He didn't die simply the victim of what the Romans did. He chose to give his life. He chose to give his life by choosing love, the path of love that no matter what, he would continue to give. And that at that point, he gives up his life. He says, into your hands, Father, I commend my spirit. Wow. That final reality, again, speaking to his Father, so praying on the cross, that we too, in our journeys of life, and especially when we're in those stages of death that maybe we all don't like to think about, but to recognize in that, for us and for those we love, if we can believe that that final dying is commending our spirit into our God, who receives that spirit and who gives us that love for all eternity. Death does not have the final say. God does, goodness does, love does, his spirit does. And we spend our life commending our life ultimately to the God who will give us life and love eternal, where we'll be praying even there in heaven for those of us here on earth, because that love continues on and we share the mission with God to keep that love going. So 7 sentences there. You can look them up. You can go online in 7 words and you'll see them. Have your own meditation. God bless you.